All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of Scripting the Book. Today, we are going to be talking about Dune Part 2. So, it's the second half of the book, the first book, Dune, and the second movie that's come out so far. Apparently, there's going to be more. So, we're going to talk about that. But first, I'm going to let my fabulous co host and book club buddies introduce themselves, starting with Ben. Take it away.
Hey everyone, I am Ben Pick. Every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I come out with questionable writing advice through running metaphors on YouTube as Running to Write. I am currently working on my fourth novel. The first three are all behind me. It's an urban fantasy series, and it's called, the first one starts with Falling Through, Expanding Cracks, Saving the Lost. It's all part of my Into the Void series. So that's who I am.
I'm Natalie Locke, juggling everything right now.
With my kitty.
Yep, like the kid, who's 4 months old now and finally done with all preliminary shots. Thank goodness.
Yay.
I do flash fiction. That is my forte. Please stop playing with that. Nope. We're doing great. I write flash fiction over on my channel once a month. I have flash fiction live with my co-author of 1,000 Words to Get Started, Chandra author, and Arthur, not author. I mean, she is an author, but her last name's Arthur. And yeah, I'm going to keep this short because apparently that's the only way I'm going to survive.
And I'm Nia the Vixen of Fiction all over the interwebs. You can find me on Instagram and Twitch as well, where I do live streams for productivity and just hanging out and chat. So if you are into that, want to hang out and chat with us about books or writing, check out my channels. Let's see. You guys want to go ahead and jump right in? We're talking about Dune, Frank Herbert's Dune, definitely a classic. We're going to start here with any dislikes, neutrals, like in love. Dislike right off the bat. All right. Did we finish it? Was this a DNF? I need to add DNF to our list.
Total DNF. I didn't open it back up after not reading it, trying to read it the first go around. I'm a mood reader is what it comes down to. And I was never in the mood to open it. Again.
Gotcha. But you did try it that one time back when.
Yes, I will give it a chance. And I will say it is the only book that I will say I DNF'd. All other books they're not DNFs. I haven't gotten to them yet. Again, like that one in particular I know is on my shelf that it's like I still have a bookmark in there.
I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if you skipped like the middle part, the part that we're going over, and just tried to read it from there.
I consider that as well.
I mean, you would have been completely lost because you wouldn't know the characters or anything that's going on. But
yeah, I mean, even now, we'll cover it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's move on to neutral. Like. Yes. Oh, we're in the same spot. Yes. So no loves on it, but definitely likes. I really liked it. I'll start. I really liked it the first time that I read it. I am also a bit of a mood reader, so I was kind of in the mood last time I read it. I was getting back into it. It's like reading when we did part one. It's kind of like reading that thing that you hadn't read in a while. And then I realized how dense it was, but it was still interesting in a way that, it's been a while, it's been a while since I actually read the source material. I was kind of that way this time, but I'm such a mood reader. I was not in the mood to read it. So I went straight to the audiobook and I got a version on Audible that was kind of immersive, and that was really nice. It was like experiencing it in a different way. So that was pretty enjoyable. And so I did those at night. I think 3 nights I sat down, just the second half. I actually went back a little bit to the end of the first half because that whole with the battle, and it's kind of climactic. So I kind of started there. And it was really immersive, all different voices. So it was just a different way to kind of absorb it and not be like, I'm really not in the mood to read this right now. Usually I'm very like, if things are heavy in the world, I want to read lighter things. That's just how my mood swings. And so I'm like, I don't really want to read about worlds being destroyed and the Messiah coming back and billions of people are going to die. Do I really want to read that right now? No. So it was a different way to take it in, and I was able to hit that like with it again, versus being like,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you said you spent it over 3 nights. So how long did it take of those 3 nights for the audiobook to go through?
It
Like how
it
many
is
hours
several
are we talking
hours.
here?
Okay, so I'm reading these at night, so I put them on a timer. So at some point until the last I just went through till the end. I'm not really sure, because I would just listen, and then as I felt myself getting sleepy, because again it's like 1 o'clock at night or something, I'm like, 1 more hour, and so it would just kind of fade into sleep, and then I would just pick it back up. It's not really that new to me, so I didn't feel like, oh, I missed the last half an hour because I ended up falling asleep. But
I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's usually on books that I haven't read before, so I do have to back up and be like, what was the last thing I remember?
Exactly.
Which is also why when I'm going to sleep, I normally I normally listen at like 1.75 speed or 2 times speed. When I'm going to sleep, I drop that down to 1, so that way the 30-minute timer isn't an hour of story. But no, I just still couldn't do it.
Still gonna do it. Yeah. So normally if it's a first time read, I will set that hour and I'll go back, and like Natalie said, and go back to anything that I missed. But wherever it would pick up the next night that I would read, I didn't feel like I missed anything, just because it was familiar enough to me. But there were some things where I was like, oh, I kind of forgot about that. And then there were some reminders of things, because I went ahead and watched the movie. So there were some reminders of things that I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But I didn't feel like, if I fell asleep for the last half an hour, and I was listening at 1.45 on Audible. 1.5 felt a little too fast for sleeping. But 1 or 1.2 was just like too slow, even for getting ready for bed. I was like, oh, too slow. But even at 1.45, the immersiveness of the music and the different character voices was still really good. So so yeah. And Ben, why were you at a like? Did you do a reread on this one, or is it just gonna stick with your memories? Oh, you're muted, buddy.
I didn't do a full reread. I kind of skimmed over it, just to hit some of the good parts to get in the feel for how the book reads. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It is hard to get past the fact that this is the grandfather of basically all science fiction at this point. All the greats really built off of this, and including Star Wars. So a lot of people misappropriate, they think that Star Wars came first and then this one copied everything, but it's really the other way around. And so we have this book to thank for all of the greats, and then from there that spouts off, that leads to all of the other, that leads to science fiction as a whole. So I mean, that does kind of give me some nostalgia glasses when it comes to reading this, and I understand that was written in the 60s, and the writing can be a bit difficult to go through, but it is still enjoyable for what it is, and it still, at the end of the day, tells a great story.
Yeah, I still will not. I can't get over the amount of world building, and I remember the first time reading it through how fascinating all of that world building was, because it's like I mean, the detail in, like, there's so many planets that are involved. All of these kingdoms falling under this empire, and how they all have become reliant on the spice, and how basically the spice is so integral in making all of their worlds go round. So I just remember how fascinating that was.
Yeah.
And even then I felt like it was a little a bit much to read, but I didn't mind it as much then as I do now. Now that now that I've read so much more, if that makes sense. But it's still well in a like for me. I'm a huge world builder. I love all the world building stuff, but I can understand that and for someone who's not into that, it's just gonna feel like a lot because there's
Yeah.
religious stuff going on. There's all of these different factions, and there's factions within each planet, and it is very dense. It is a lot.
Yeah. So a good comparison is Hyperion, which is, another sci-fi book. I think it's 4 books in the series, and it's not spice, but their entire intergalactic travel is all based around this kind of future tech that they don't really understand, which is basically just portals. And as the story goes on, those portals kind of close, and it just completely decimates the entire civilization because now they can't. Family members would, go into work one day and they would travel to a different planet, and then they can't get back. And the only way in which they could get back to manually travel back to reunite with their family would take multiple lifetimes. So it's just really cool to see how those dynamics sort of evolve. And the same thing here with a planet full of spice where they need to harvest this, and we kind of learn what the spice actually is, and we get a lot of those interesting answers within the second half of Dune, which is, fundamentally their entire society is based around exploiting this one planet.
Exactly. So, and there is message in there, which is great. It's just done really, really well because, I mean, some of it is very obvious. You've got Baron, is it Harkonnen? I'm gonna be so bad with the names, guys. I'm so sorry. So we have you. So younger me especially liked that he's so gross, and it's just like he's the bad guy. Now I'm like, we can tone down some of those things now because we as you learn and evolve, you're like, do we really need to go there? But I know we like a villain. We like to know it's the villain, and so it played well. Um, he's pretty disgusting, but we also know now that sometimes the bad guys don't always look like the bad guys. So, we don't need to necessarily have to play off the stereotype that they're the bad ones. So that's why they look this way, and they're gross and slops and huge, and all of just making them so bigger than life in the grotesqueness that you just know that they're the bad guy. But it worked for this. And I like the reveals. Remembering all the reveals and things that came about as I'm reading the story. I'm like, oh, that's how they found that, because you just know that they know things, and as time goes away, you forget how they figured things out, and what drinking the water of life, that it does so much more than, Paul's gonna now, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but he's the Messiah. So, seeing him drinking the water of life is more than just him coming into that. There's so much more to it, and where it all comes from, where the water of life comes from. And so there's just so many little details that you get in a book that you sometimes will miss when you're watching the movie, especially if the movie really interests you, and you're like, but I wonder why, and I wonder how about certain things. A lot of times getting back into the book, will most of the time, especially in something like this, will answer those questions because it's in there. All right. So we have anything else? This is the hardest part, guys. The more no spoiler we go, the harder it is. But if you want to read the book, we really want you to be able to read the book and get into it on your own. So if you guys are ready,
the only thing I'll add is that it's I recognize it as a zeitgeist of the time because it is a precursor for like all sci-fi, and that people, and I think I said this last time, like people weren't well traveled. They couldn't just Google like, hey, what does a desert wasteland look like, and and stuff like that. So, and now that we are, it's one of those things that just doesn't carry well, but I still respect it. I will never knock anyone who loves it and everything. And even, I will say, just for me, even stories made today that have a more world building than character development, I can't. Now, if we removed or trimmed down the world building and focused on this chosen one trope type situation, I probably would have been more attentive. Anything. But I mean, even when I read Game of Thrones, the Bran chapters, despite as much world building and religion development that had, I hated them. So,
well, that's the thing, is that there isn't much story here. I mean, it's basically just, you know, a tale of revenge is what it amounts to.
Yeah. Tale of revenge, a history story, a history of what happened in this world, you know.
Yeah, which actually kind of makes me think of the way House of Dragons, that first book, like how, remember, it was kind of that, as if you're reading a history book almost.
Yeah, a history book, encyclopedia of Westeros.
Yeah, but I mean, I respect it. All right, I'll give it that, and it also made it easy for the filmmakers, you know, to have it completely laid out. This is what it looks like.
Yeah, and one of on House of the Dragon, one of the things that I liked about that is because there's some details here and there, but because it's laid out, it's almost like it's his outline of the history of the world, and he's like, "Here you go, guys who want to make movies and stuff out of this." And
not to be confused with Mel Brooks' History of the World, though. Totally different.
Yeah, totally different. So I feel like with Frank Herbert's book, there's still so much there, and it's gonna continue on. And I didn't realize that I had read Messiah, but I'm pretty sure that I did. Once I remembered where this one ended, I was like, wait, did it end there? Oh, I did read Messiah, but I haven't read any of the Children of Dune ones. I'm pretty sure that's where I stopped.
The ending was a little different in the book, though. I had to do research.
Yeah,
and everything. So the movie ending and the book ending, little slightly different, but okay.
Yes, which we will get into here very soon. So let's go ahead and talk about the movie. Anybody, we all watched it all the way through, right? So there's nobody, you know, dislikes on the movie, neutral on the movie.
Dislike to neutral.
I'm a neutral like. So I liked it way more than I disliked it. So no loves on the movie. All right. So let's go ahead and get into our thoughts on the movie, standalone, without the book, how we felt about the movie. For me, the one downfall is that it was really long. I'm trying to think. There was at one point where I literally looked at the time on the movie, and that's when I know, okay, I feel like this is long. Where I looked at it to see where we were at, and I was like, "Oh, we still got like 40 minutes left," you know. So that for me is a tell that it's probably not going to be a love. But yeah, that for me, I feel like that was its one pitfall. I don't feel like I had any problems with any of the actors or characters. I'm trying to think if there was any that I really didn't like.
Ben, you look like you got something to say on that one.
Yeah.
I can wait my turn. I'll you know.
Yeah. So that was why it hit the like to love for me. It was a little long. I'm pretty satisfied with most of the characters. I know some of the characters a little bit different.
What about the world building? Like, felt the world?
Oh, we'll get in. Yeah, we'll get into the world building in the next one.
Sure.
But I thought it looked pretty good. There were a couple of the CGI moments where it's like, this is not great. But for what they're trying to do, I thought for most of it looked okay. There were a couple of moments where I was like, that one wasn't the shot. And there's one I'll wait till we get into the comparisons before I talk about it. But Ben.
So yeah, I'm going to try and say this as quickly as I can. But first of all, I think there's three main problems with this. The first one is that everyone was saying, this is the best movie ever. It's the best movie of the year. It's the the science fiction movie to bring everyone back into the theaters. And like, yeah, it wasn't. So the only reason why this isn't like dislike to neutral for me is because I completely disregarded that, and I knew going in like it's not going to be as good as everyone says it is. And so with that in mind, like I'm just giving this a flat out neutral. Let's see what else was there. It doesn't tell a complete story. So it's part 2, which means that we need to watch part 1. But even watching parts 1 and 2 together, it still doesn't tell a complete character arc for everyone. And we'll get into the ending, but the ending still leaves the story unfinished. Like there's so much that's lacking. And, you're right with the world building. I didn't really have too many problems with the CGI. Of course, I watched it on this tiny little computer that I'm, coming out here. So it wasn't that bad.
You sat there the whole time, man?
I was working out.
Okay.
I'm like, that's a long time.
I was like,
multiple days of workouts.
Sit at my desk. I made sure to take over the TV.
Mm-hmm. No, I did. I think it was spread out over 2 days of workouts. But so the Zendaya and Charlamagne's acting in the first movie was okay because it was basically like static and kind of dead faced. But when the first movie is driven on by its action, the second movie is supposed to be driven on by its characters, and they're evolving, relationships and everything, and taking on the mantles that they're put into. But to still have those same like dead-faced acting, there's a difference between subtlety and there's minimalist acting, which is perfectly fine. If you
trying to convey stoicism, and it just
yeah, it's very stoic.
But like it just felt dead to me. Like it felt like stiff and wooden. It didn't convey what they were trying to, in my opinion. And comparing this to the first movie, the action scenes were better. Like they're supposed, the effort put in. We'll get to it, but yeah, the action scenes were just better in the first movie. I'll tell you that.
No.
To me, this movie, it felt like it was trying to be action and just couldn't. like I bet I don't remember watching the previews for it, but I'm pretty sure the one big action scene on the flying thing and like people about to fall off, I bet that was probably used in the preview for it, and it's like this short. Not even this short compared to 3 hours, but no, it's just this short. Like and that's about as much action as you see, and in my opinion, because even the Coliseum stuff wouldn't really count to me as action, because it was to me that was more character development than I had seen thus far, really.
That was a little
the kid's interaction with father figure person.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing, especially the one where the scene where they're dropping the bombs on the people, but you only literally just see them dropping the bombs on the rocks. So there's not really what's going on the inside until the aftermath, and then you see them pulling the people. And I'm like, that also the person who was not in the mood to read anything really hard or gory, but also they're sitting on top of the one of the dunes, just kind of like watching what's going on. But I'm like, I don't know that everybody really understood what was going on, because they just hear the bombs and then they see it, and then but it's kind of like they're just dropping bombs on a rock, and then afterwards you see that there's a little boy and that they're pulling. So I'm like, I feel like there was a missed moment to really almost draw the viewer in a little bit more emotionally, while the bad thing was happening, because we get to see that the bad thing is happening, but we don't understand really the gravity of what the bad thing is. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity. And then
I said this backstage, but it took me 2 tries to watch this yesterday. I fell asleep the first time, so
Yeah.
Not that it's hard to make me go to sleep though.
And that's the other thing. It was so long that I just wonder if there was like 30 minutes that they could have either made something more exciting happen or eliminate to because I feel like it would have been. I don't understand what's going on with the character development, so we'll get into that in a little bit. Did everybody get their thoughts on the movie by itself? Okay. So let's go ahead and hop into comparing it to the world building, characters, execution. Full spoilers for both the book and the movie at this point. So again, the world building, I think that they did a pretty good job with that. I felt like there was a good understanding of the different factions. There was a good understanding of how they're against each other. The emperor and his daughter. I think that there's a decent understanding of how of the relationship with Chani. Like you understand how this comes along. You see it happening. The romance reader and writer in me would have liked for there to have been more, because it almost felt a little bit too dry and too stoic. Like, I get it, things are harsh, so there's not going to be a lot. There were just a few moments of the looking at each other, but these are the things that when you're building a romance, you want more of. So they had the moments of the, when she follows him, that's really cute. But it's like they got this close, but instead of like getting you there, it's like they just got it to here, and then they're together. And I feel like part of that might be that even though the movie's longer, they really shortened the amount of time, so we don't get that Chani, that they built a life together over 2-3 years. It's like, it feels like, oh, okay, maybe they hooked up a few times. They liked each other enough to hook up a few times, and then moving right along. So it just,
I think it's a reflection of the time it was written in, as well as it was written by a guy. No offense.
Yeah.
But I mean, at that time, the guys weren't really prevalent in their romantic style.
Yeah. And this, because it's a movie, and this would have been a good way, especially when you're shortening the time, you really gotta bring us into what's going on. But also there are some changes, so maybe they're going in a different direction. I feel like the first half of the movie was closer, and even though this was fairly close, it's like there seems to be like some diverging that's going to be happening, and it's like, is that why we've done this way? I don't know, and I won't know until we see Messiah and what they actually decide to do with it, to know that this was
going to be purpose. 2 movies or 1?
I'm hearing 2 now. I thought it could only. I thought 1. Yeah, but that's
the other thing grab.
I'm hearing, is that it's going to
be because they're wanting
grab and a TV series, and a TV series possibly. I'm like, this feels like a lot, but okay, we'll see.
Listen, have they learned nothing from Marvel, for example, came up with movie after movie after movie, to the point where they saturated the market and people were just kind of tired of it.
Yeah, and some of us who didn't want to see one movie, I'm like, there were a couple of them I wasn't interested in seeing, and then when I'd go to see the next one, I'd be like, wait, and then my kids, well, that happened in like in that one. I'm like, I didn't watch that one, so I had no idea this whole plot line happened, because I didn't want to particularly see that one. So yeah. But I feel like this one's so chronological that people will be forced, if they want to know what's going on, they'll be forced to go back, because it is a lot. It's a lot. There's like, I don't feel like there's any way you can jump into Messiah, and there's characters that are going to be coming back. You've got just so much going on with the Bene Gesserit, the relationship that Paul's going to have with the Empress that he has to marry. Again, I don't know if they're changing that whole thing, but they made some changes that I'm like, if this is building up to something in Messiah, it works, but it just almost feels a little flat-footed on its own. Like
because
I
there's
needed
no
to
character development.
yes. And it's like, why? Now, I will say with the no character development for the Chani character, I don't, because the character is different now. I don't, it's because I don't know what they're planning to do with Messiah, but it's really this it feels like she's getting stronger in her. We can't have someone be called the Messiah because that's dangerous. So if that's the development, it's not an arc. It's just you see her developing in one way, and then Paul developing in another. Where at first Paul is like, I agree with you. This is crazy. I don't want to be this person. He drinks that water of life, and he's like, I see it now. Sorry. So
Which
now
was like the last hour, like the most forward momentum. Because this is the stuff I remember.
Yeah, and these weren't arcs for them. These were just developments leading them to where they're at in the end. So it just,
I mean, you
I
could
don't know.
almost make an argument that it was an arc because he didn't want to go south because everyone would die or whatever. But then he drinks and he goes, yeah, you know what? I want to go south.
Yeah, but I feel like because we don't know
the why.
Well, I feel like we kind of know. It's like we don't know what the end result of all of this is going to be if you haven't read all the books. You know, it just feels like to me it feels more of a divergence than a full arc.
I know for me, one of my small qualms, and it could just be me, but casting Florence Pugh. I've just seen her in so many things that I see her. I can't see a character she's playing anymore. And that's probably just because I saw her in Oppenheimer. God, Oppenheimer was the most recent one that sticks in my mind, but she's been in so many things lately that I've seen that when I watched Dune, I was like, there she is again.
Yeah. And we've even seen her with Timothée in a movie together before, you know? So it's like, yeah, I feel like it's going to be an unfortunate thing for some of these young actors who have really been out there. You know, they're doing their thing. Shout out to them for doing that. But also, we'll also start to see what's them and what's the acting. And I think that showed up quite a bit. There's so many famous. The star-studded to say the least, but even with the Emperor, we're seeing that, you know, even with Fade, we're seeing that. It's like we're seeing a lot of the actor versus acting.
Like I see Drax.
That's an unfortunate thing. Yeah.
Ding did it better, by the way.
I always see Drax. It doesn't matter how bad of the character he is. I always see Drax.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Though I will say I didn't see Drax in the cabin at the end of the world when I
need to
watch that. Oh no, sorry. That's the book. Knock at the Cabin is the movie.
Okay.
I didn't see Drax then. He was actually very good in that one.
I'm trying. I'm gonna keep trying not to see the actors, but and it's not to say that they're a bad actor. I think sometimes they're cast because the directors and the people doing the casting want those things. But sometimes when it's a lot of it, then it really starts to stand out. As I feel like people have said that.
I was going to say what you're supposed to do for an actor. For example, Daniel Radcliffe did this, like Harry Potter. Everyone saw him as Harry Potter. So he went into the horror genre and did a bunch of movies like that. Like it just completely opposite. And even some of the indie films that were just like off the wall crazy, like Horns and everything. He did that to kind of like have this separation enough so that when he actually started doing other things, people don't see Harry Potter anymore. They see Daniel Radcliffe as an actor. And that's what needs to happen with these people who are typecasted, really.
Yeah. and getting in there in a lot of things. And so yeah, I feel like that too. And same thing with Daniel, because I love him in his more comedic roles. Then I don't see Harry Potter at all anymore. So so hopefully, um, I'm hoping that Messiah will be better because some of my favorite characters from the book will come back, which is how I realized, oh, I did read Messiah because I'm like, we're ending here, but and I'm like, oh, that's in Dune Messiah. So I'm like, I did read that one. It's been a while, folks. It's been a long time. Couldn't remember which ones I had read. I
Ben,
thought I'd only read Dune.
What do you have to say? I only had a very short spurt for me. It was Florence Pugh for me that really got me.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, a lot of what Nia said, I completely stand with and I completely agree with. A lot of so the movie. My understanding is that Frank Herbert wrote Dune Messiah and all the other books because people kind of, missed his point of Dune, which is that Paul really shouldn't have been this Messiah. He shouldn't have been worshipped in this way. And that, the white savior complex sort of leads to billions and billions of deaths across planet after planet after planet. But I feel like the movie tried to compensate for that by saying all like the quiet parts out loud. And so it was meant to be this big momentous moment at the end of the movie where like, oh, the Holy War has begun and like all this other stuff and all that, and I'm just like, great. I don't care. Like, I don't care about the characters. I don't care about, I don't really care about this world that's created in this movie. And to explicitly look at the camera and say like, talk to the audience and say, this is what's coming, this is what's happening, this is what this means. It shows a lack of respect for the audience itself. So the book might have been too subtle, but the movie is just beating us over the head with it.
Yeah, and I feel like a little bit with needing to care about the characters, especially in today's day, and when you're visually watching it, all of the characters were so stoic and so myopic in their view and where they're going. Paul wasn't at first, but now since he drank the water of life, he too is very one-tracked. And so when you have that one track and everyone's very stoic, the Freemen live a very hard life. It's all about, the water, the things that you can't cry because crying is a waste of water. No matter how emotional the moment is, that would be a waste. You know what I mean? So there's so much of this that it must be stoic that it makes it a little bit harder for the audience to really, fall in love with these characters and really care what's happening with them. Like even when the Empress at the end, she's like, "Spare my father," that is so dry delivered that you're like, yeah, spare my father and I'll go ahead and marry you. And it's just like, it's not the character to feel like, no, please don't kill my father. No, it's not going to happen. But you needed to, I feel like there's got to be a way to fine weave this to make you care a little bit.
So
building off that comment, care a little bit. Nobody cares. It's like nobody cares about anybody. Really.
If you say like billions of people are going to die, I mean, it's billions of people who we don't know. We don't know anything about any of the planets, and the only other planet we've seen are the Harkonnens, who are this, poison infused kind of mutated human beings who have no emotions whatsoever. So if they blow up, if they Alderaan planet Harkonnen, we as an audience don't have any emotional tie to that.
Yeah.
Also,
that's why I sorry. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Oh no, So you made a comment about how they were very precious with water, and you can't cry, like you need to collect your tears, and yet they had those.
Which is great world building. I love that.
Except they had the intimate moments, which you're telling me there's no, sweat or other.
Valid point.
It makes you think it must be like we can't get too excited. I don't know. I mean,
I know there was one scene
probably
where there was where the person's face was still stoic, but it was I'm sorry, I don't have the characters, but the woman with the tattoos on her face with the hood. or whatever. She's talking to the other woman saying, hey, a guy's going to come here. You're going to give him the water. And just like, no,
Jessica.
that's not you're. And then it was a just do it, like deep, raspy voice and everything. But her face stayed the same, which I know they were just conveying this like mystical.
It's the Force.
Otherworldly, thing. But at the same time, I was just like, again, this is blank. Completely.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know how else you do it, because I imagine that that's how it is meant to be in the book. But again, visually, when you're trying to draw the audience in, I feel like you gotta do something. There were times where there was acting in the eyes, and you see it, and acting with the tension in their face. I know you see it at the end when Chani is getting ready to leave, and you just see her face getting so hardened, and it's like, okay, so this is where she's like, I'm not gonna cry about this, but that's as much emotion as we can get, and it's just like, I don't know.
You can still be angry. You can still like show emotion. We don't have to have tears. If anything, actors who have crocodile tears, this would have been a dream role for them.
Yeah. It's the same. It's just that thing when I feel like the only time, and it was because she was basically allowed, is when Chani puts her tear in the water and wakes Paul up. Other than that, we have, Jessica, even when she's pregnant, so she's vomiting and she's just trying to hold it in. When she's wrenching in pain after drinking the stuff, she's, you know what I mean? She's still got to be so stoic even in that. It's like in everything, and it's just hard to get the audience to care about the characters when they're not allowed to show emotion. And so them not showing a lot of emotion means that you're not feeling how connected they are. I'm sure Jessica loves Paul, but you know what I mean? It's like it feels like something is missing. And so I don't know how would a better way to show how much they care about each other would be when you've got to portray it like this. So that's why I feel like you've got to have these other moments, like when they're bombing the rock, the dwelling. You know what I mean? I'm sure someone in there was crying, to show them at least,
It doesn't have to be extreme. It could be something as simple as like a small gift of showing I'm thinking of you, or
there you go.
Or I'm going to put myself in this situation so you don't have to kind of sacrifice thing. Like we don't have to have the pain restraint or, but we could also have pause, like never mind, I'm going to stay reserved, type thing. Like even just a pullback, like, because I mean, for example, in Regency era stuff, like they can't hold hands, they can't touch or whatever, so we have to be like, oh my god, swooning when someone's wrist is exposed. And
when they're pinky
that in this day and age,
you get the moment, the pinky grazing moment, and you're just like, they touched.
Yeah, we can get that. A tear wasn't shed or anything in those moments, but we have developed so much. So if Regency era stuff can do well now, that obviously does way more than that to show affection, we can do it in this book.
Yes.
And maybe.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into best, and because we're coming up on the hour. What do you think were the best and worst changes? I don't know if you would know what any of the changes are necessarily, Natalie, but if there's something that you know of that you could think of. No idea.
The worst changes would be just some of the actors and everything. Like you're grabbing people who are typecasted that we can't separate them from that.
Yeah.
That's like a worse change, but it's not something that would have been conveyed in the book either. So
Yeah. For me, I think that not giving us the time, at least telling us that this much time has passed, is a detriment because we don't, and not having Paul and Chani don't have a child together, so we don't get to see how close they are. Again, I won't know if this is a bad change until we get into Messiah. It looks like they're taking their characters in a different direction. So I don't know if that's a bad thing. All I know is I wasn't fond of the shortening of time, because at one time I'm looking and I'm like, she's still pregnant? Because Jessica's still pregnant.
Movie
This
time
child
got
is not
shortened,
born.
but everything else was.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie was still long though, y'all. So, we don't, there are things that we're missing because they shortened the time. So they shortened the time frame that Paul is with the Freeman, is what I mean. So it's over a few months versus a couple of years. So we're missing out on some of the relationship and why Paul feels like the Freeman are his people. And there's parts like when Gurney returns that you can tell he's just like, oh, you're really with these people, because he's like, we, us, and Gurney's like, them and you, and Paul's like, us, we, when he speaks. So that connection happened in a very short time. Yeah, so I don't know if I'm a fan of that shortened timeline. I feel like we miss out on some of the emotion when you don't have a child that should have been born, and then again, spoilers, guys, a child that should have been born and dies. So I feel like there's opportunities for connection with the characters and empathy with the characters that were missed in doing that. Best change for me, I thought I had one.
Well, that doesn't reflect well.
No. Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go right into best scene. So the best change is the lead up to the climax, where we have them riding in the sandworms, and they're about to do this huge climactic battle, and it looks like it's going to be this really incredible thing. And I mean, that really was, it kept me interested, it kept me hooked, it really brought me into the climax. And then it goes downhill from there. So because all that buildup just led to nothing. They eliminate the threats very easily. There's no conflict, there's no drama, there's no suspense, and it just leads right into this rushed finale. And yes, the book also was a bit rushed at the end, but the movie just, for as long as it was, and for as slow as a pace as it builds up to, it has no ending. And that's my worst change too, is that this movie is nothing more than a preview for the next movie. Like, we were talking about Marvel, a couple minutes ago, and it's the exact same thing, where this movie exists to lead you to the next one instead of telling its own story. Like, if you never read any of the other books in Dune still stands on its own as a novel.
Yeah.
And even if you combine parts 1 and 2 together, it is not a standalone, movie for that. And this especially is not a standalone movie. Part 2 is not standalone. So yeah, like what Richard said. So it's a 2-part, 5+ hour preview for a film that hasn't been made yet. Yes, exactly. And
it felt like that very much so.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that.
Or what's the prologue and everything.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Dune did feel, you can literally read just Dune, the first book, and feel like you've read all you need to read. When the way that this movie ended was really like, it felt more like we're ending it on this.
Mm-hmm.
Now I gotta wait to see what's gonna happen next. Even though I kind of know what I have.
Imagine if Marvel had Thanos do this and then it went to black. Okay.
Yeah, and everybody's like, "Well,"
but it went to black before the snap is what really happened.
Right.
in this movie.
Yeah.
I know for me,
All
it
right.
was one of the worst things, or like one of my pet peeves, the like wrangling of the worms or whatever. Like they did it like 3 different times showing it. And I'm like, I got it. I know how to write a worm now. Like stop with the instructional video over and over again and just let me go. Like they could have saved so much time there. And then this is one of my pet peeves about it pulled me out of the world. So Paul comes up and he sees somebody in the distance riding a worm, and he's like, hey. Okay, for anyone whose father or mother mowed the lawn, all right, they couldn't hear you if you were standing next to them screaming. And you're trying to tell me that the person on the worm could yell back, hey, over all that sound, when later they show them like with the goggles and everything really focused, and it's loud
like,
as hell.
They're like in a tunnel, wind tunnel, sand.
Yeah. I was like, it pulled me out of this. I mean, not that I was really, I barely had a pinky toe in the story before then, but I was just like, really? So sorry, that was like one of the things that just really stood out to me, that I was like, are you kidding? And it was such a 5-second clip, but still.
Yeah. I will say it looked better than it did in the other movie. And I did not see the miniseries, so I can't judge the miniseries. But the writing of the worm did look cool. I don't think we need to see him wrangled that many times. Just knowing it, and then of course it's a big deal to see Paul ride the biggest giantest worm, because that like confirmed in a lot of people's mind that yes, he is the Messiah. See, it was written, it was foretold. So that was important. And then I did like the scene at the end where they were coming in, but to the anticlimactic battle. But yeah. I needed more, and I needed more from this movie, and in a shorter time. That is my final thought. How about you guys?
Read the book. I do, based on what you said, I do kind of want to read Dune Messiah, but that's, I have no interest in watching the movie unless we do it here. Unless there's a reason for me to watch it.
Same. I would have not watched any of these if we weren't doing it here. And I obviously didn't read the book, but thank God that we don't grade, because I would fail this English class if we did.
As I tell everybody, DNFing is totally legit. Whether it's reading or watching, we pick. It's like any book club. You pick something. You don't know how it's going to land with everybody. We'll probably have some stuff coming up soon that are not going to land well with me, because I don't like the horror stuff. But I will say September, we are reading The Martian. So I am excited about that. I've read it before. So I'm excited for this one. And then did we decide on, or is it Pet Cemetery for October?
I've already started it, by the way, just because I couldn't find an audiobook version. So I'm making sure I have plenty of time to read it. It's 395 pages on the version I have. And I was talking to my husband about it, by the way. And I was like, I'm not really scared. I'm like over 150 pages in. I'm not scared. There was a gruesome moment, but I'm not like falling asleep, freaking out. And Alex summarized Stephen King not as horror, but paranormal drama, like the things that where you're like, wow, if this existed, I would be scared. But but because it doesn't exist, it's not. You're able to not be fearful.
Yeah,
it's more of twisted psychological thoughts. Either way, side note.
Don't trick me, Natalie. Don't trick.
I'm only 150 pages in. Okay, so
okay,
I'll let you know.
All right. So that is it from us. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us while we talk about Dune. I'm going to let my friends do some outros, let you know where you can find them next. If you are watching on the replay, we get most of our views come on the replay. Feel free to drop a comment and let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you think that we're on something, because we're way off, or if you agree with us. Either way, let us know. Let us know. Just keep all the comments polite. We're all friends here.
We can take it. You can tell me I'm an idiot for DNF and like I'm dumb. It's fine.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Ben, take it away.
Sure. Ben Pick. Every Monday night, I do Writing to Write on YouTube. And tomorrow, I'm talking about whether or not this could be made. And I'm talking about the Chronicles of Prydain. So one of my founding fantasy epic novels that got me into reading. So I'm going to talk about what it would be like to write that now, as opposed to back. I want to say that's another 60s book that was written. So
Nice.
Man, the 60s, they were just trying to escape.
Let me see here.
But also, I will say, resemblance of the time. I mean, we had the race to the moon and stuff. So there was this, like, what happens not on this world idea. So,
yeah, 1964.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's Monday night?
Yep. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome.
Ready to rewatch for me, but
yeah,
as normal. That's the way my life runs these days. It's rewatch. Yeah, I'm Natalie Locke. I write flash fiction and edit it live with my co-author Chandra Arthur. We wrote a book, 1,000 Words to Get It Started, as well as a follow-on book that is tailored to romance called 1,000 Words to Ignite Romance. And that should let you know there's some themes coming. The one thing that I would say I'm most proud of that's tied closely to scripting the book, though, is over on my TikTok. I'm Writer Locke there. I have over 30 videos of not comparing the book to the movie, or show, but letting you know if you find yourself in the situation where you haven't consumed either, which one I recommend. Dune is nowhere on my page because I thoroughly have a rule that I must have finished the book and finish the show / movie. I have to have consumed both before I feel I can properly speak on what I suggest to be your first story consumption media.
Fair enough.
So.
And I'm Nia, the Vixen of Fiction. You can find me here on YouTube and also over on Twitch. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Come join us next week when we're reading The Martian. And I just want to say bye to everybody. Bye, Tiffany and Richard and Shannon who came by. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us while we do this live. And for everybody who's going to be watching on the rewatch, thank you for watching and let us know what you think. And we're going to say goodbye. Thank you all so much. Ooh, if I can find my banner. Bye.